literally live right now. Uh, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Um, it says it's live. Hold on. We're having an issue here. Crap, I don't know how to do this. Can you hear me, Susan?
I can hear you.
They're
Yes.
telling me that they cannot see me live.
Oh,
Okay. Uh, am I live? Now it's showing up. That is so weird. You guys didn't even get my intro, did you? I
I saw
have
it.
done nothing. You saw it, but
Mhm.
can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? We've been live the whole time. I don't understand why it wasn't even showing up. I saw that we had 0 people. So, and now we're just straight live and just cut straight to it because I actually had like an intro and everything, and it was really awesome. But now we're here. So, Susan, how are you? Good to
I'm
see you. I'm
good.
looking straight on stage. Well, I didn't want to leave you behind if I didn't know what was going on.
Well,
Audio is
I'm
okay.
laughing because it figures that, there's ghosts in the machine.
I went live. I swear to God, I did nothing. I went live. I've been sitting here. Stuart walked in, and I'm like, I'm live, but I see nothing. I see 0 people, but we're okay now, which is the great news. And, since it is a Wednesday night and we're just kind of rolling with it and having a good time, let's go ahead and say hi to some people while you're here. And so I had a whole promo, there was a whole plan. So while we're saying hi to people, so Diane Boss, she's so sweet. Susan, all these people, like I talk to him on chat all the time. And here's my husband, Stuart's here. Hi, honey. This Sakashi Chris, and we're Mindforked, even though you didn't hear any of that. Dorothy Hawkins, she's the voice of reason. She is just lovely, lovely soul. We got Tommy G. He's from Australia. I feel like Bridget Jones. Susan, Tommy's from Australia. Tommy, Susan knows ACDC. I don't know. I'm just going to say stuff now. And we got Lenny from Rebellious
There she
Unknown.
is. Hi.
Um, we're going to talk about that in a minute because the first part of this interview was actually aired on Rebellious Unknown. Renee Cruz, darling, how are you? So good to see you. And Jaden, 0428, nice to have
Hello.
you here. Welcome. And oh my God, Ripples, Dave Hurley. I call him Ripples because Lynn used to play the song Ripples. And so I call them Ripples. That's just my little nickname. And that was just such a fascinating story I threw in there. You can tell I'm nervous because I had no idea why we weren't live. Timmy McTim-Tims. Okay, so let me do a little proper intro here. You guys, this woman here is just absolutely fascinating. Uh, uh, she is an author. She's a rock and roll historian for over 30 years. Has written 6 books. In some of them, I have little banners for to show you, including the following. Do, 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 do. Hold on a second. Here we go. Including the story of ACDC, Let There Be Rock. Rock and Roll Fantasy by Susan Masino, My Life and Times with ACDC, Van Halen, and Kiss. And the one that we're going to focus on tonight, which is The Secrets of the Universe, Universal Lost Past Lives, Ghost Adventures, and more. And I just loved it right off the bat. I mean, I've read half of the book, more than half of the book already, Susan. And the fact that you hit on Akashic Records right off the bat in that intro, mwah, you had
Yeah.
me at hello. So
Thank
you
you.
had me at hello. Let's go ahead and get started and just tell us a little bit because like we said, Rebellious Unknown, Lynn and Dave covered your rock and roll side, more of your adventures with ACDC, your adventures with Van Halen. But we talked about the fact that you had so many adventures on the paranormal side, and then
Mhm.
the overlap between them, that it would make a really nice set of shows to have rock and roll on side A and this one on side B. So tell us a little bit about just your overall story and how we got here because it's awesome.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've always had paranormal experiences since I was a little kid. So that kind of started me on that journey. But I grew up in venues. My parents owned bars and restaurants, and actually a ballroom. Back when I was born in the mid 50s to late 50s, they owned the Riverview Ballroom. So I was introduced into music whether I liked it or not, because the ballroom was on the other side of our apartment on the ground floor. And so I fell in love with music probably from the day I got home from the hospital. My dad used to joke about how he would my babysitter was the jukebox because they were
Oh,
busy.
wow.
My dad's running the bar, my mom's running the banquets and the restaurant and everything. So they would put me in a stroller and put me in front of the jukebox. And so I grew up with and I, what was cool about it for me, I think, and what helped me later on in life is that I got to know these musicians and bands as people, with their families, and some would come on the road with them, some wouldn't. But I learned very early on that musicians are just like everyone else is, as far as being starstruck by them. So
Mhm.
I had that kind of bred into me that, these are people that, live a crazy life. I loved it. I mean, the gypsy life of a musician, that was fascinating to me. And later in life, I wanted to become part of the music business, but I wasn't a performer. And I had horrible, believe it or not, back then I had horrible stage fright. I just
Mm.
couldn't give a speech if my life depended on it. And but I found out, I started hanging out with these local bands. A girlfriend of mine started bringing me out to hang out with the bands, and I wanted to be involved. And I was at a party one night where I met, an agent and, a photographer and, the lighting guy and the sound guy. And then there's musicians. And then there's also, writers that write for the paper that is in town. And that night it really hit me that, I was always a writer, even as a child. I loved to read. I read everything I could get my hands on especially what's weird is I was
Mm.
fascinated with biographies. And the reason why
Very
is,
cool.
well, the main reason was that I wanted to know how these people, and we're talking like Abraham Lincoln, Madame Curie, Amelia Earhart, Ben Franklin, it was, we're talking the 60s. So that was my in the school, that was the biographies. There was a series,
Yeah.
and I read
Mhm.
all of them because I wanted to know how they made their dreams come true. That was the whole thing for
Hmm.
me. And I say this
Wow.
in when I give speeches. There's one common denominator among all of those people, and it's one word, and it's not, work or perseverance or determination or tenacity or none of those words. The one word that was true for every single person was belief. They believed
Mhm.
they could do it. And that's kind of what I've based my whole life on, is that if I believe I can do it, I can make it happen eventually.
Y- And you have no idea how many times this has come up in my life in the last, few weeks. I was telling you about it a little bit backstage, but it's like everywhere is starting to come up over and over again. Like the belief, like if you believe something can happen,
Hmm.
uh, that's how you attract it. But
Yeah.
in the book, you talk about giving, you know, like helping others in order to
Yes.
achieve that.
Yes.
So I just love that approach to it.
Well,
It
and
just
I
seems,
learned that, from
mhm,
someone else, people like Edgar Casey and Deepak
mhm,
Chopra and, Howard Bloom. I would
mhm,
suggest reading him. I've learned
mhm,
from other people and then kind of applied it to myself. But I always had this inside, I always had this belief that, if I wanted to, because a lot of people have asked me, well, how did you do all these things? And
mhm.
it's simple. I wanted to. That's it. You
Yeah,
know. I wanted to. I wanted to meet that band, or I wanted to write that book, or I wanted to get into that concert, or whatever. I wanted to. It wa-
Yeah.
so that's how you
I
do it.
mean, yeah, but I mean, but your story even goes back even further because you started experiencing, between your family and just kind of, things in your past, that there's always been something. There's always been something to how, what type of information you're receiving and how,
Right.
how these experiences have shaped you. Can you tell us, for the people in the audience that, don't know a little bit about that?
Well, absolutely. And it really started with, I was very young, around probably
Mhm.
5 to 7 years old, where my grandmother, we would stay overnight at her place, and she believed in life after death. She talked about that matter of factly. That was just something, that wasn't questioned. And and so one night, and we would sleep in the day bed, and she would be in her bed, and we'd say our prayers, but she'd tell us stories before we went to sleep. And one night she told us, and I don't think that she thought it would scare us, because it didn't scare me at
Mhm.
all. But she told
Mhm.
us about how after her mother passed, that her mother appeared to her in her bedroom to say goodbye. And that I can't even tell you how many hundreds of nights that I went to sleep in that daybed, staring at that doorway in the dark, waiting for
Oh my
somebody to
God.
show up. Just somebody, anybody, grandma, great grandma, I don't care who it is. I want to see somebody. So I was
Yeah.
super fascinated by it. Like, is it good? Is it bad? Can she do it at will? Will she never be seen again? It just sent me on this lifelong path of trying to find as much, learn as much as I could about all of it. So,
Yeah. So from there we go, in looking at your book, in the way that it's kind of structured, uh, I love that synchronicities chapter is
mhm.
being one of the first ones because it's definitely, kind of ties it all together. It talks about a little bit of, I think the quote's actually from George Nori. Can we talk about that? Because synchronicities are all over your story. It's just
Oh yeah,
over and over and over again, the connections, how you got there. Let's dig
yeah.
into that because that I feel synchronicities and even just talking to you tonight,
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
personally. Yeah. So,
my life is filled with everywhere I turn, and going back to the very beginning of the book too, and talking about belief. I'll tell the quick story about my parents used to take us shopping in downtown Milwaukee. We'd go down,
mhm.
and we lived in Madison, so this we were going to the big city. It was exciting, and we're on Wisconsin Avenue with all the Gimbals and all the big stores, and I believe it was Gimbals that was giving away a sprig of holly to people that bought gifts. And I don't know if we didn't buy anything. I'm pretty sure that they bought things, but they had run out of the little corsages of holly.
Mhm.
And of course,
Mhm.
I'd never seen holly for real, so I was like, I really wanted one. I was probably, I don't know, 8 years old maybe, and so I kept begging my parents, begging, 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 and they're like, well, we can't, we don't, we can't get one. They don't have any more, all of that. So I was crushed by that over a sprig of
Oh
holly.
man.
I don't. It was Christmas time.
Hey,
I
it
don't know.
matters. It's
Yeah,
Christmas. It
yeah.
matters,
Yeah, yeah,
So
it
I
was
get you.
something I really wanted, and
Mhm.
so as usual after shopping, we go out to dinner, and we're standing in line at a supper club downtown, and all I can think of is that holly. I want that holly more than anything. I'm
Mhm.
not letting it go. I'm just hanging on to that. And I don't know how this happened exactly, but as we got closer to the doorway to go in, my dad looked down at me and he nodded over to the shelf along the window. It was like a
Mhm.
ledge. And he kind of looked at me, and then he nodded over at that ledge, like, you need to look at that. And I looked over on that ledge, and there was a
Mm.
sprig of holly, the exact
That's
thing
exact.
that I wanted. And I don't know if, like, somebody, maybe somebody in line was sick of the kid whining about holly and just put their, or
Just please, for love of God, here's some holly.
yeah, let's like shut this kid up. Or or knowing my dad, somebody was wearing one and he slipped him a couple of bucks to put it on the ledge
Hey,
like that. But it like, to me, it was a positive proof that you could get
mhm.
what you wanted if you wanted it bad enough. That magic existed. That's what
Yeah, it just
started everything.
cemented that idea that like
Yes.
you can manifest what,
What you truly want,
what
yes,
you
if you
truly
really, really
want.
want, and you put all that energy into that, and it just shows up. So I kind of had that growing up, and everything from, getting to, write for a newspaper in the very beginning of my career, it's funny to call it career, it was mayhem.
Hey, it is a career. It's
Mayhem.
crazy, but it's a career.
Yeah, yeah, it turned
That's
out to be. It turned out to be.
awesome. That's
But
awesome.
so I decide that I'm gonna, or my hopes is to write for this paper. And of course, at the time, girls didn't write about music. They didn't write about rock and roll, and the boys
Yeah,
didn't want me there. What is this?
yeah.
So I weaseled my way in by actually writing an anonymous review of a band that was trashing the paper, and
Mm-hmm.
that ended up being, pretty funny actually. Not to the
Mm-hmm.
band, but to everybody else. But I wrote a very, because they trashed the paper at a gig that I was watching, in the bar watching their band, and I'm thinking, well, you're lucky no one's here to review you guys. And that's when, the light bulb went off, and I went up to the bar and I got a pen and a paper napkin. I started making notes, and then I wrote an anonymous letter to the paper, very snarky, very
Ooh.
sarcastic, very
Mm-hmm.
dry. And it caused all
Yeah.
kinds of people were upset. The band was upset, management was upset. People were upset they didn't know who wrote it. All of this. So that's how I got my foot in the door there, because I finally
And
called them and said,
mhm.
"Hey, that letter that you guys printed, I hear that it's caused a lot of response, and oh yeah, it's crazy. We've never had response like this." And I said, "Well, I wrote that letter," and they didn't believe that a woman could do that, at the time, and that's how I got in.
Yeah.
But as I'm driving by the paper one day, now this was only I want to say a few weeks after I started getting involved with them. Let's say it was not even 2 months, so it was very early. And I'm driving by the paper uh, on the day that Elvis
Mhm.
died, August 16th,
Mhm.
1977. And I was driving by the paper downtown here in Madison, Wisconsin, and my voice, that I call him, my spirit guide, who's sometimes I can actually hear him yelling at me, which is hilarious. But this voice says to me, "Pull over and get an assignment," and I blew it off, because they're not going to give me. They still haven't given me an assignment, so they're not going to give me an assignment. They're barely letting me come over to the paper and hang out once in a while. And this
Yeah.
voice was very insistent and said, "Pull over and get the assignment." Get an assignment. And I did, and I walked in, and the editor had just gotten off the phone with a promoter that needed help with a band that was going to play downtown that night. It was free. I would be a
Mhm.
gopher, run errands, and handle the dressing room if you want. Wasn't much of a dressing room, but that was the assignment. No pay or
Mhm.
anything like that, but I was, I of course I said yes, because I wanted to do anything I could to get involved with them. And as I'm running out the door, I turn around, and I've seen everybody when I was in high school. The Coliseum here in Madison, Wisconsin, I saw, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Cream. I mean, I've seen everybody.
You've seen
And
everybody.
yeah, pretty much everybody. And so as I was walking out the door, I turned around and I asked the editor, who is it? I mean, what band's playing tonight? And he just kind of shrugged it off. He's like, I don't know, some band out of Australia called AC/DC. And I, you know,
That is so, I'd be like, you
well,
know.
it didn't really register anything to me, because I'd never heard of them. and they were on their Let There Be Rock tour. Let There Be Rock, the album had come out and gotten no airplay in the United States, so we had never heard of them. We had no idea who they
Mhm.
were. And that,
Wow.
I went down there and my life was never the same after that night. It changed, did a 180.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
So from there, it just kind of the connection. Talk about that connection that you felt with these guys. Because it seemed like you guys were meant to get there. It
well,
was like
yeah,
it seemed like everything just kind of led you to that moment.
yeah,
So
it was
tell
crazy.
me.
'Cause, I'd met a lot of bands, I'd, or ended up meeting a lot of bands, and, so I was pretty shy around these guys. I didn't wanna stay and talk or anything. I wanted to
Mhm.
keep my distance and, they were out having dinner when I got there, and I went and got some wine for the lead singer, some Blue Nun wine, by the way, if anybody wants to go out and get a bottle and and do a
Blue nut
toast.
wine.
And so, and and I'd read this little one-page promo that they had started brawls from one end of the United Kingdom to the other. And so
Mhm.
I'm looking at this and thinking, maybe this wasn't the greatest idea for me to come down here tonight. I don't know. I was a little leery about, what these guys are all about. They weren't pretty in their pictures, okay? I'm just gonna say their pictures
Mhm.
were not exactly that attractive either. So I was a little afraid when they got there. And
Yeah.
so so I'm in the loft. It was the dressing room was in a loft above the bar in a bar called the Stone Hearth in downtown Madison, Wisconsin. That had a lot of bands for many years. Not there anymore, but so we're up in the loft, and I'm fixing the cheese and the crackers and the soda and the things that they normally would put out for the bands. And as they come in, they're coming in now from dinner, and I'm walking out. I'm going backwards out the door because
Mhm.
I'm out of here. This is their dressing
Yeah.
room. I'm leaving. So I kind of went snacks are over there, and there's soft drinks over there and some beer, and if you want a mixed drink, just come on downstairs and get me, and say I'm leaving. And this one dark-haired guy came in and sat down on a couch. That I ended up finding out that was Malcolm. But then the second person that walked in
Wow.
had this dark, shaggy hair and tattoos up and down his arms. And he walked
Um,
right up to me, shoulder to shoulder, and he stuck his face like right in my face and said, "Sit." And I reached over.
I'd be
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, he
holy,
literally
all right.
he's like, "Sit." And so I grabbed a chair and I dragged it over and I sat down, and he went over and he poured 2 glasses of wine, and he brought one over to me and he handed it to me and he said, "Hi, I'm Bon Scott. You must be Sue." And I looked at him and I said, how do you
That's
know my name?"
wild.
And Malcolm, I learned later it was Malcolm. Malcolm made a joke and he goes, "Oh, the promoter told us all about you. You're supposed to do whatever we want." And they all giggle, as the other guys come in, they all giggle. And of course then
Oh,
I'm thinking, "Oh my God, should I run now?" Or but
yeah.
we just hit it off. And I learned a lot of things that I didn't know then about, like when they were talking about a bum. It was not a homeless person. It was my behind that they were talking about. Or having a pull was not taking a drag off a cigarette, and I'll leave it right there at what that meant. But they were saying
Yeah.
terribly inappropriate things around me, and
Oh,
I was just giving it right back to them. We had this rapport that just very dry humor and very sarcastic, and stuff like that. We just hit it off, and I was lucky enough to become friends with the roadie named Barry Taylor at the time, and he's on Instagram if you want to check him out. He's still out there. He's written
yeah.
several books, um,
Fairy
and
tale. Yes.
so Barry and I really hit it off. As still friends to this day. And back before the internet and all this, he asked me for my name and address and telephone number. And so I wrote it down. I gave it to him, and I thought, yeah, I'll probably never hear from these guys again. And of course, Bon asked me to go back to the motel with them that night, and I knew better to say no.
You're like,
I was flattered, but I'm like, no, 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 no. And another thing, I knew that they were going to be. I mean, and I'm not saying that I was the only one, but I knew that when I saw them live that night that they were going to be a phenomena, that they were going to take the
mhm.
world by storm. And I told them that. I actually told them that someday they were going to be as big as the Rolling Stones. And I
Wow.
said 2 to 3 years. And somebody made and I am a psychic empath, by the way. And people have made
Yeah.
snarky remarks about, oh, well, what is she? Was she a psychic? Well, because
Yeah.
that's become a long running joke between us now about them being as big as the Rolling Stones. They don't agree to that. I do, but they don't. So still won't take a
I
compliment 40 years later. But I told them that
That's
night.
cool. Humility, man. That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah,
You
no, they
know, from
the they
you know,
won't take the last one, the very last time that I saw Angus, the 40 plus years later, and I always bring it up at the end of the visit. I'll say, now can I say you're as big as the Rolling Stones? And he came back with a nope, Mick and Keith will always be taller than us. So very, very humble
hey,
and
very humble.
very
I mean,
humble.
and but how, how iconic are these guys?
Oh my
It's just
yeah.
the fact that you can make a comment like that. It's like, yeah, Bon Scott,
Oh yeah.
Angus, Malcolm,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I just well, and so
what?
Barry,
So,
God bless him, Barry
mhm,
started writing or calling me every week for the next 3 years. And I saw them every time they played in, Madison, Milwaukee, Chicago, Rockford. I did eventually, after I moved to New York City, I got to see him at Madison Square Garden, and then years and years later, I actually got to see them play in Italy, which was a huge dream of mine, and that came to me. I didn't try to do it. I didn't pay for it.
mhm,
That came to me 5 years after. I keep a dream journal, and I
mhm,
dreamed one night, when I see the guys in ACDC, past and present, it always manifests, even though it might be years down the road. And 5 years earlier, I had dreamed that I was with Angus and Malcolm. We were outside on a
mhm,
sunny day, blue skies, and I was in Italy, and they were playing an
mhm,
outdoor stadium. And 5 years after that dream, I was gifted a trip to Italy to do a book signing and then go to the show. And so I did, and it was a bright sunny day with blue skies. And so we have a very strange connection here and on the
That's
other side, apparently. So
Yeah, because there's so many things that I want to talk about, but we definitely want to talk about you've had experiences with them after they've been gone. It's like they're
yes.
still with you, and
Hmm.
your the paranormal and the ghosts was definitely something we wanted to hit on. This perfect segue. So
Yeah.
so you have your living experiences with these guys, these great artists that were so
Hmm.
creative and such a deep connection. So what have you experienced after,
Well,
they've
mainly,
been gone?
I've seen them. I have seen them all in my dreams in different scenarios, if you will. But Bon is the one that, since he's passed, he and it's not often, it might be years in between, but he has shown up. The one of the first vivid ones of my experiences with Bon on the other side
Mhm,
is he came to me one night in my dream, and we sat on my bed and talked, and it seemed like we talked and laughed for hours, and just, like a brother and sister, like we're like pushing each other and slapping each other, and just laughing
mhm,
and all that. And he obviously came to tell me something, Now, of course, I can't remember the next day, like, what were you really talking about? But I was working on my, or, when I worked at night, I worked in the living room, low lighting after my son went to bed. Well, as a baby, that's how I started writing, was very late at night. But I never used this one living room lamp that we had. It was very big and bright, and I never used it while I worked. And so the
Mhm.
next day when I woke up from that dream with Bon, it was so vivid and it seemed like it lasted for hours, which was amazing. Um, my husband called me from work and asked me, he said, "Why did you leave that light on last night?" And I said, "What light?"
Mhm.
And he told me which lamp he was talking about. And I said, I don't use that lamp at night. I never use that lamp, and it wasn't on when I went to bed. And that to me told me Bon was like, "Yeah, I was here. You don't have to doubt it. I was here." And then just within weeks, I end up again in a very synchronistic way meeting publishers that were looking for someone to write a biography of ACDC for them. So that
That
again,
is
another thing
amazing.
I
Yeah.
fell into, completely
And you
fell into.
want it. Yeah, no, it's like that's it was right in your wheelhouse. It's just you fell into it.
It
But
it's so weird though, because I there was other biographies that hadn't been out for years. The last one was 92 and this was 2004. But I didn't
Mhm.
I had written my rock and roll fantasy book. So I had told my story of me with
Mhm.
ACDC. So I didn't really go out and say I want to write a biography of ACDC. What I wanted actually was to get a bigger publisher to publish rock and roll
Mm,
fantasy. That's what I ended up at the book expo, and I'm
that's
looking,
right.
I'm shopping in my head, right? Because you
Yeah.
don't necessarily automatically get to meet the right people and talk to someone that like
Yeah.
can make a decision. This is an expo and they're promoting their
Mm.
books, but I walk into this booth that was music sales slash omnibus press. Very, great publishers. Love them to death. And I was walking around saying, "Oh my God, these guys are my publishers. This is it. I'm home. I found it. I found them." And some lady came up and asked me who I was, kind of like, "Get out of our booth because we didn't invite you here." And
Yeah.
what are you talking about? And I told her I was shopping for a publisher for a book I'd already written. Well, she said, "We happen to have our managing editor here today. She's right over there. And when she's done with that person, I'll introduce you." Oh, what? I mean, I get to talk to an
Good I
editor at a major publishing company with no agent, and, there's
no,
nobody in the
you just
way.
happen to walk in and it
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
mhm.
and there's, I don't know, there's about 30,000 people in the building and like 600 booths, and President Clinton was the keynote speaker, and so it was a pretty big deal. But
Mhm.
I just walk into the booth, and so when I meet her, Andrea Rotondo, God bless her, um, I started uh, really selling rock and roll fantasy to her, thinking, I got an audience. I'm going to, see what she thinks, all of that. And as I started telling her this, she says, "Oh, what's your name again in the book?" And I repeated myself, and she said, "Oh, I was going to come find you." And I literally laughed in her face. And I said,
That's so cool. That's so
I,
cool.
I said to her, I said, "Yeah, right. You were going to come find me." And she goes, "Oh," and she turned around and she grabbed a day planner, turned it around and handed it to me. And at 4:30 was
Mhm.
my name and my book signing and what booth I was in. And she said to me, she goes, "Well, we publish ACDC's music tablature books," which I had no idea. And so I had to leave to do my book signing, and she had people to see. And she said, if I don't make it over there, when you're done, come back over here and we'll talk after." Okay, so I took off, but I'm cynical. I'm thinking, "Oh my God, maybe I put something in my book I didn't have the rights to, so I'm going to be sued." This is what I'm thinking. I'm going to be sued by a major publisher.
Yeah. I know
It's
you're getting ready for bad news, you
oh
know.
yeah, yeah. I'm thinking, I'm thinking, oh, you did it, really good.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
you
you
wrote a
really
book and
stepped in it now. You
yeah, you put
really
it out
stepped
there.
in it.
Yeah, so that's what I thought. But my husband at the time was talking to a salesman from that
Mm-hmm,
company at the same time I was talking to the editor. And so
mm-hmm.
as we walked away from the booth, he he looked at me and he goes, kind of really like, well, I must know, and I haven't mentioned it. Why haven't I mentioned it? He says, well, she told you what they're looking for, right? And I said, well, yeah, they're looking for me because they're
Yeah,
coming. She might be coming to my book signing, and I might getting sued by this company because I wrote a book with nobody's permission. Well, actually, Angus blessed that book,
yeah,
but legally speaking, and
yeah. But you could
and
have gotten away from it, yeah, away with
yeah,
it because he
you
had
know,
said, yeah.
but still, I'm thinking that that's the only reason because she didn't mention anything to me about this. And
Mhm.
then finally, he goes, so she didn't tell you what they're looking for. And that's when I was irritated and I just stopped and I put my hands on my hips. I turned to him and I said, well, what? What then? What are they looking for? And he leans in and he goes, they're looking for somebody to write a biography of AC/DC for them. And
That's you're like,
talk about
I would
thunderstruck.
be like fangirling. Yeah,
No,
thunderstorm.
I was
Wow.
thunderstruck. I literally stopped him and I said,
Mhm.
okay, okay, start from the top and say it again. And he said those words. And then I said, I'll be right back. And I ran down to the basement bathroom. Luckily, there was no one in the ladies' bathroom. And I ran from one end of the bathroom to the other, about 8 times, screaming at the top of my lungs.
Like,
Screaming.
oh my God. I'd be
Yeah.
like, oh my God, oh
I was
my
like, I did
God,
it.
oh
I
my
did it. I
God.
did it. Yes, I did it. I did it. I did it. I
Yeah,
did it. I was just, oh, I mean, mind blowing. But
mind
then,
blown.
yeah, yeah. But then it still took another 9 weeks for that deal to actually come through. But again, what are the odds that I would find her before she found me
Exactly.
with all
Yeah.
those people? So
And
my life is crazy like that.
I love it. In all these different synchronicities that brought you there. Now, tell me a little bit about synchronicities in general, because
Yeah.
you have an entire chapter on this
Hmm.
in your book, and a little bit about your work with George Newry. But I the whole I don't believe in coincidences. I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah, George,
I'm starting
I'm a
to believe
huge
that.
fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a
Hmm.
huge fan of George Norrie. I was lucky enough to be called by some friends a few years back saying they live up north in Wisconsin and they were going to
Hmm.
Minneapolis to a conference with George Norrie and Giorgio from Ancient Aliens and John Ward, who's a Egyptianologist. I probably didn't say that right, but I ended up going there and meeting George in person. And that
Yeah.
started a friendship, and I've been on coast to coast many times since. But
Yeah.
synchronicity is if you can get into the flow of that and notice things around you because a lot of people don't. I'm into like numbers and angel numbers, and they all have meanings, not just the angel numbers, but all numbers have meanings, and everything. Speaking of the Akashic records, everything is
Hmm.
numerical. So everything like your name or your title of your business, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, everything adds up to numbers. And you can find out so much about yourself by getting into numerology. And that, again, the synchronicity of, seeing something on a license plate or always looking at the clock when it's 11:11, which I thought I was the only one for the longest
I'm
time.
333. I
Me
am
too.
333. And I
Yep.
wake up at 3:33 in the morning. And every time I look at the clock, it's like I'll look at 3:33 or 2:22. It's like, and
Yep.
then there's always three
Always.
hawks over my house. It's like the number three just keeps. happening, and you have an entire chapter on numerology and kind of how that,
Yeah,
how
it
that
all
comes to
correlates.
play.
And so you can, and I use that too. Like I will mail a letter on a certain day, or I'll
Do
email an
you?
email. Yes, I will email like let's say 3:33. If I'm going to email
Hmm.
somebody and it's a business interaction or whatever, I'll wait till 3:33 to send the email because they have, yeah, Tommy 1111. I know.
Tommy
The
1111
funniest thing for
person.
years, I thought I was the only one. Uh, I have a moon in my moon is Taurus, by the
Yeah,
way.
he's like Taurus is in Jupiter right now. I think it's
Yep,
affecting
and
me. I
Jupiter,
think a lot of things.
we're things are going to be good. Jupiter is the giver of gifts and good
Yeah.
fortune, so it's always fun
And
to
then we
see.
got a couple more. People are like,
Yep,
I got this. I get
1107.
1107 by XJ. And then
Yeah,
Timmy gets
740.
747.
I see
So,
737 because I was born at 737.
oh my
And I
God,
see that
Samuel and
all the
I are
time.
both 333. We're
Yep.
both 333.
Yeah.
We're not evil. We're sweet. He's actually really nice.
Well, I was born on
Family's
the
the sweetest.
3rd, so I
Yeah.
have that 3 energy. And so synchronicity, when I just think that once you notice it, then the
Hmm.
universe, it's easier to navigate life when you use that power that's around you,
Hmm.
of like, if let's say that you have something you want to do and it just doesn't feel right now, your stomach, you're kind
Hmm.
of like, I don't know if I want to do that right now. And then you wait a little while, or you wait another day, or you even wait a week, and all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, now I'm going to contact that person. That feels like, it's the right thing to do. So little things will come up, as in numbers, or all kinds of things. I mean, just the craziest symbols that will kind of tell you that you're on your path, like Jim Carrey and Bruce Almighty asking for signs, and he's got a truck in front of him that's full of signs.
Yeah.
Well, life is like
Yeah.
that. It's like if you start looking for the signs, you can, kind of see. And I'm sure a lot of people, how they met somebody, or, things that have happened in their own lives. People have that ability to, it's all plotted out. The synchronicities
I
are there,
think so too.
like even meeting that woman at the book expo. I could have sat in my booth and waited for my book signing, but something kept telling me, you're looking for something. You have to keep
Yeah.
walking. You're looking for something. I was looking for a bigger publisher, to tell you the truth,
Yeah.
So I was shopping.
Mhm.
But I had that fire in me of that, don't, you got an hour, you know, head out, get out there, see what you can find.
It's it's a trip. I mean, oh my God, UFO man's here. Hi, UFO man. It's a trip because sometimes I find myself so many times going like talking heads. How did I get here? Is
Yeah.
this my
Yep.
beautiful house? Hi, UFO man. And like before I was even, one of the shows that I was obsessed with for a long time, this like over 2 years ago, was Skinwalker Ranch. At the time, if somebody would have told me, I keep saying, if somebody would have told me like 8 months ago that I would be meeting Travis Taylor in person and talking to Thomas Winterton and Dragon and having a conversation after being obsessed with the show,
Can
I
we
would
go
have called them a
together?
little crazy. Oh my
Can
God,
you
yes,
take
we
me,
have to.
because I love
I
those
want to go
guys?
so bad. I love those guys. I'm
Find
gonna
out if
have
we
Chris
can go.
Bartell.
Oh,
I in a couple of weeks, like next Friday, I have Chris Bartell coming in to talk about Skinwalker. But
oh,
it's
excellent.
examples like that, or that I watch Ancient Aliens, and next thing you know, me and Mike Bear are hanging out, and I'm making fun of his beanie because it looks like my beanie. In what world am I making fun of Mike Bear at Applebee's?
Yeah,
At Roswell, or meeting Don Schmidt at the library, at
okay.
his museum. It's it's that
That's
stuff.
all.
Or
Yeah.
meeting Lynn and Dave and performing the wedding
Mhm.
ceremony in the healing waters of Blind Frog Ranch.
Oh my God.
That's the kind
And
of
that is
stuff.
so
It's like
cool.
when I read your book, I think about that. And so tell
Yeah.
me a little bit more about, um, I definitely want to get into past lives as well. So just take me down the Susan road because there's so many things I want
Oh
to
my goodness. Well,
know.
yeah, I mean, I've always as a kid, I started hearing what I thought were, I didn't know if, I didn't really think they were aliens, maybe angels that would come to me and at night and talk to me in my bedroom. And I would get
Mhm.
upset because I was afraid my parents would hear them and then I'd get in trouble. And I had out of body experiences as a child when I'd fall asleep. And they're cool now, but they were terrifying as a kid because as I was falling asleep, all of a sudden my door would grow to be 30 feet high, and my windows would all of a
Oh,
sudden be
wow.
30 feet high, and I'm up on the
Mhm.
ceiling. And so that happened, that started happening when I was just a kid. But then I've always, again, you just had this incredible connection to my intuition of when something tells me to do something or not do something. And that's why I think, I've seen full body apparitions, I've seen shadow people. My house here in Madison, when I lived in my house, was horribly haunted.
Oh my
Completely
God.
haunted. Like, so much activity in that house that I should have been doing a live, like every night.
I
Oh,
know,
okay,
right? Yeah.
let's go downstairs and see what's going on. And that's where, getting into like past lives and stuff. My son,
Yeah.
between the ages of 4 and 6, ended up having
Mhm.
very vivid past life memories of being on the Titanic and dying on the Titanic. And it was an adventure and a journey, and really sad, very very
Yeah.
hard. For a long time it was really hard because we're thinking, is he going to outgrow this? Is it going to go away? But it for 2 years it did not go away. And we went through a lot of experiences with him, with night terrors, and him drawing hundreds of pictures of the Titanic. I mean, just in
Wasn't he
detail.
like crawling on the bed? Like he would talk about like the water freezing and having the night terrors, just like he was experiencing it all
Oh
over
yeah.
again, right?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that was actually what I call the death dream, because he had night terrors for 2 years. And they were mainly, he'd wake up, he'd fall asleep, it'd be within the hour that he would
Mhm.
wake up, and he'd come running out of his room, and he would go anywhere to try to get out, opening all the doors and all that stuff. And
Wow.
so we had to really monitor him when he did that. But when 2 years into it now, and we take him to the Titanic exhibit in Chicago, which was my psychologist daughter suggested it. I get flack for
Mhm.
that. Why would you
Oh,
take your kid there? And it was kind of like that.
uh,
I mean, I didn't know if we should do that. I thought, no,
yeah.
but it brought closure to him to actually see
Yeah.
parts of the Titanic. But he had this dream, and it was his last night terror, by the way. One night he had gone to sleep, and I heard this pounding on the wall of his bedroom, rhythmic pounding. And so I jumped up, I ran into his room, and he was up on all fours. He was shaking, violently shaking, staring at the
Mm.
floor. And I know he doesn't see me. I know he doesn't realize that I'm in the room. And I want to comfort him. I want to do something. And before I can even move, this man's voice, not a little boy, this man's voice screams, and he's staring at the floor, "She's going down." And
Mm.
right then and there, I realized that he was actually, experiencing the sinking of the ship. And I burst into
Goodness.
tears. It was so, it was heartbreaking, but I calmed him down. He finally went back to sleep. And the next day I told him that he really scared me. I said, "You really scared Mama last night. You had such a bad nightmare." And you were shaking really hard on your bed, and he was so, like, so nonchalant about it all. He says, "Well, Mama, the water is freezing."
I can't.
Yeah.
That gets me.
Yeah.
I mean, if for a kid, Mama, the water's freezing. Oh
Yeah.
my
Because I
gosh.
said I thought I should call an ambulance because he was almost convulsing. He was shaking so hard.
Oh my
And,
gosh.
yeah, and he's like, "Psst,
That had to be so
the
scary
water
because you
is
feel
freezing."
so out of control. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. But what was
oh,
amazing, and I guess I don't know if that's really the right word, but after 2 years and this nightmare that night, he'd go a couple days and wouldn't talk about the Titanic, and then pretty soon it was a week and he didn't talk about it, and then it was 2 weeks and he didn't talk about it, and it was just done. He didn't bring it up again. That was it.
wow. That's a trip because he also, if I recall, okay, first of all, I do have a question on this one because you were talking about he knew the designs. There was a lot of detail that he
Mm.
seemed to be aware of, which is where you guys were thinking that he was Thomas Andrews.
He
Because
could have
Thomas
been. Yeah,
Andrews, it could have been Thomas Andrews, it could have been a lot of people, but it
could
seemed
have
to
been.
be somebody that worked in it. Like
Knew
either
it
like
very
one of the
well.
guys that were like down, it
Mhm.
almost seemed
Right.
like also one of the guys that were like stuck, potentially. I mean, it's just a
Yeah. Well,
horrifying story, but
he
he knew a lot. He knew
well,
something. It's
well, exactly, and
Mhm.
the main things about all the pictures that he drew, painted, colored pencils, black and white, ink, everything, he never was looking at a picture of the Titanic when he was drawing it. It was all from
Yeah.
out of his head. And the one
Wow.
that really gets me is it was a pencil drawing of if you took the ship and cut it long ways, and he had
Mhm.
every level and every room and every ladder and every light fixture and every coat hook. I mean, it was mind-boggling that, between the ages of
Wow.
4, 5, and 6 is when he created all this, and he knew. And the day he came home with, of course, a picture of the Titanic, from
Mhm.
school, and one of the last smokestack didn't have smoke coming out, and I said to him, "But
Mm.
did you run out of time? Couldn't you finish your picture today?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, where's the smoke then? There's no smoke here." And he goes, "It's a dummy stack, Mama. They didn't use it. It was just for show." A,
How
a,
would
a
he,
dummy stack? Uh, I,
how
I
could
had never
we
even heard that before when he said that to me. And I didn't know. I mean, years later when they did documentaries and stuff, then yes, there was a dummy stack. They put four up. They thought it looked grander, more grand.
Mhm.
So one was a dummy stack. It wasn't
And
used.
we're talking how many years ago did this happen? I just want to put some context to this
This
because
was back in like 90 or 98 to 2000, 1998 to
okay.
2000
So it was
when we
still kind of
experienced it.
early. Yeah, when you experienced that. My point being that it's not like it was super easy to get that information,
No, no, not yet.
at that
No.
time. And that's important to know because it's
Oh
not
yeah,
like you
yeah.
can, right now, you can just call anything and they'll to give you the answer. But,
Sure, yeah, yeah, and it's
and
all
and
over,
this was not his only experience either, right? Because didn't he have like memories? Doesn't he have like multiple
Well,
potential
he
past life
when
experiences?
when he was around 3, like any other little boy, he loved trains. He was fascinated with trains, and so we bought him
Mm-hmm.
trains and trains on the track and trains that ran and all of that. And he just started telling me, he says, "Well, I designed the first train cars in Wyoming." And I said, "I'm sorry." And he's like, "I built
Oh,
them, Mama. There were no cars then; there were just horses. But I built the train cars in Wyoming." And he said his name was James in that life also. Was married. He had
wow.
several children. He lived in a really big house, and that he built the train cars in Wyoming, and that passed after a while, and he didn't really talk about it anymore. And then I'm in school one day looking. I was waiting on him in the library, so there was a American history book, and I pulled it out, and it opened up again, synchronicity. It opened up to a
Mhm.
page of the first train cars and the men on the tracks, and the first train cars
Oh.
were built in Wyoming. I had no idea. I never looked it up. I know, because I wasn't like checking him. I just thought it was kind of sweet
Yeah,
that
I
he had
mean,
that memory. He was excited, that I helped design the first train cars. He was pretty proud of himself. And
yeah,
he's a
I mean,
designer now, so he's a 3D animator and a matte painter, as they say.
mhm.
He's worked on Star Trek TV series, with all the stuff in the background. That's what
That's
he
so
draws.
cool.
So,
That is so
yeah,
cool. I love that he's full of creativity.
he is.
Obviously,
Yeah, he's an
it's your
amazing
son.
artist. Well,
It,
yeah,
it was
but
it
he's
was bound to
very
happen.
talented.
But yeah, where was I going with this? I had a thought for a second on this because I at the time that all these things were happening, did you start to put the puzzle together, or is it more like in retrospect as you look back? Like, I mean, he had these experiences. You also helped others, right? Because he was in the series Ghost in My Child, so you wind up helping other people. Did you start figuring
Yes.
out that maybe you have more of a role, based on
Oh,
all
yeah.
these things kind of coming together? Tell me a
I,
little
I,
bit about that.
I actually, they ended up calling me the Mother Whisperer because after we were on and we got such a huge reaction from that show, that I still to this day get letters from people that their children might be going through something like that and asking advice, or how did you feel when this was happening, that sort of thing. So it's very obviously, we were meant to take it public, if you will. I didn't intend on it until, you mentioned the first pilot show for Ghost Inside My Child was that young little boy that remembered being a pilot in World War II. And they,
Little man can't get out. Little
yeah,
man can't get out. I always remember that quote from that
yeah.
that
And
little
he's
kid.
made, you can look him up. I mean, they've corroborated all his information, and he was there obviously in World War II. And when I first saw
Mhm.
that show on TV, I mentioned to my husband at the time, I said, Jamie's story on the Titanic should be on that show. But then it was like a year later that all of a
Mhm.
sudden I'm on the internet one day and an email or a notice comes up looking for families, children with past life memories. I called them. I was on the phone for just 3 minutes before I had a producer on the phone, and they were freaking out.
Wow.
And they're right away. We want you. We want you. We have to interview all of you. It's going to take a process, whatever. But we want this story. We really want this story. And one of the posts on TikTok or YouTube has gotten. It's a segment. I think it might be the dream that he had of the ship
Hmm.
going down.
Yeah.
Has had over 1 million views. So,
Wow.
and so many people that write in that had, when they were kids, had a fascination with the Titanic. So very
I
fascinating.
when I was looking, like I said, I got your book on Kindle, started reading it, and then I find the piece about your son. And it was funny because I told my husband Stuart, and it was like, I've seen the story before. It's like, yeah, you brought it up to me even before.
Oh
I've
yeah.
been wanting to do a show on past lives for a while. I've been like talking to people. It's like, I want to do a show on past lives because I'm like obsessed with the topic. And then I watched the pilot one. There was several others, like this guy that worked in Hollywood, and
Yeah,
this kid knew everything about the
yep,
movies, everything, and
he
met the
did.
families. And I remember your son, but I didn't put it together until I read the book. And even after talking to, when you were on Lynn's show, I didn't put it together. And it's like, I've been wanting to do something about past lives, and here's the perfect example. And it just landed on my lap without
Again,
me trying.
synchronicity.
It's that
It just
type of stuff,
it all
that
fits together. It's
it
so
all fits
fascinating that it
together.
works out that way. I love
I
that.
know, and I see it on in daily life. It's like it's just kind of when you're not looking and you're just kind of probably helping others. And like you said, maybe just then, that's how things happen. So talk to me about chakras. So in your book, one thing before we go there, electric people. Okay, we got to talk about electric people for
Oh
a
my God.
second because
Yes.
I swear to God, my husband swears that I'm an electric person. Like
Hmm.
all the cables die around me. All the power gets drained. He's so funny. He's like, you have an issue and it's not normal. And then I saw in your book the thing about the electric people. Don't
Yes.
and
Yes.
you potentially experiencing. Tell me about that.
Well,
That's
yeah,
fun.
and my daughter is like that also. That we all have an electrical pulse that go through us. Um,
Mm-hmm.
call it God, call it life force, whatever you want, but it's electrical. And so there, where you come into the aura of people, that
Mm-hmm.
have auras, that's your electrical field. And then that electrical field can it messes with things. It's like,
Yeah,
I blow out lights or I turn them on. So like I'm going down the highway and I'll be,
that's
go underneath a big street light thing and it'll blow out as I go underneath it. And that happens a lot. And
mm-hmm.
my stuff, what's weird is I don't have as much like failure. I have things that last for like ever. Like I still have my little Panasonic little recorder thing from the 70s that
Uh-huh.
still works. So,
Oh my gosh.
I mean, everything, it seems like everything I have that's electrical will, like my mom's hand mixer from when I was a little kid, I still use it. And it, was
Oh
probably
wow.
made in the 60s, I'm sure, but I still use it. So, I mess with things. And yeah,
He's my
cables
husband.
and
He's like
chargers.
cables
Yeah,
and chargers. He keeps
she's
some inventory of them, and I'm like, it burnt
yep.
out. He goes, seriously, dude, seriously.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm
Well, you're
like,
just
it
you have a very
happened.
strong signal
Yeah.
coming through. So, there you
It's
go.
it's it's a trip. But I was gonna ask you back to past lives for a second, only because again, topic I love. Uh, the reason why became obsessed with it is because I see the whole at the beginning of life, the remembering, and towards the end of life, the seeing something
Mhm.
that we don't. And it's like it seems like at the beginning, in the first 5 years, or and you having that experience, seeing your son, versus the people that see people as they're heading towards the end of the life cycle,
Mhm.
they see people, and people call it dementia prematurely. And I'm like, there's something to this, man. They see
Oh yeah.
something we don't see. What are your thoughts on that? Did
Oh, definitely. I believe that
you
once you transition or while you're transitioning, that your friends and family, meet up. Why not? They're on the other side.
yeah.
They're not in a physical body anymore, and you're transitioning out of your physical body into that energy. So it makes sense to me that you would draw people that love you and that people that you loved,
Mhm.
and why not? So they see people, they might see their moms, or or definitely, people that have passed before them. But
Mhm.
there usually is a welcoming party, because once we leave
Yeah.
this physical world, and the belief that everything is three-dimensional and it's just us here and nothing else, quite a shocker to some people. When you get released
Yeah.
into the ethers, and the universe is at your fingertips, it's like,
Mhm.
uh-oh, maybe I should have thought about this
Yeah.
before,
Yeah. I think none of us have all the answers until that moment, where
oh
we,
yeah,
we
yeah,
finally get back connected. And maybe, some of us might have more answers than others, but it's just going to be
oh,
such a trip.
oh yeah,
But
yeah.
the whole past lives thing, there's so many stories. Like I'm gonna do an episode, like a little video on all the different stories, because it's
Mm,
it's kind of like missing 411, right? You think about some people missing, but then when you look at it in total, how many
mhm.
people are missing? What? How many unexplained,
Oh yeah,
disappearances they have? It's the same with the past lives. There's so many kids with vivid
oh yeah,
recollections, and
yep.
it all seems to fade, at
Yeah,
after
you're
5, and
you're
probably for your
born.
own survival, but
It is. Well, see, what I
Mhm.
believe is as when you're born into a new life, you're here to learn lessons that you didn't learn before. And that's just my
Mm,
belief. I can't say that it's true, but that's what I believe.
mhm.
And so when you are born into a new life, I think up until around the age of 3 is really where it peaks, where if kids do have memories that they come out, they start
Mhm.
talking about them. But then as they get older, it fades because it has to. We're not here to
Yeah,
um, live in the past life that we were in. We have a completely new body, new situation, new time era, all of that. So we're not supposed to be involved. But children, especially around the age of 3, if they do have vivid memories, and a lot of times it's unfortunately it's like traumatic deaths, died suddenly
yeah.
or in accidents. That seems to carry over into the memories of the new life for a while, and then it fades, like you said, it fades.
It
So,
goes back to trauma, right? Like people that have NDEs and go through traumatic experiences that seem to make something like a filter comes off. Like there's some
mhm.
filter that others have that when these things happen, and maybe the ones from the past experience, the past lives feed over
Oh,
because it's
yeah,
still
yeah.
that trauma and that,
Yeah,
it's
it's a spillover of, I
it's
mean,
a
and
spillover.
yeah, yeah, and when something's that traumatic, when you're, in your body and then all of a sudden you're not in your body anymore, yeah, I can imagine that is gonna affect, you know, how things progress or how you progress as a soul. So,
Yeah, so let's segue a little bit to the universal laws because that's definitely part of, that's the main part of the title. And you went through, I actually listed them out, but it's a nice segue because the first one you talk about is the laws of self-preservation. And
mhm.
that's where self-preservation, are we filtered to see what makes us comfortable, and is that what those filters don't necessarily exist at the beginning of life? So kind of segueing to the universal laws, talk to me about the ones that you chose, about this particular or any, just talk
Oh,
to me about universal laws in general and how that related over in your book.
well, there's many lists of them and in
Mhm.
different forms, different wordage. I picked some that my daughter's a psychologist, so she helped me choose some of the what we call universal laws, and they stand up to science. So
Mhm.
that's the ones I kind of focused on. So I think I put in 11 or something. I don't remember. I
Yeah,
wrote
I
it, I
have
should
like,
know.
yeah, self-preservation, the loss of balance. And again,
Mhm.
this is one that I'm seeing a lot, the symmetry for every plus there's a
Yes.
minus. It's like everything
Everything.
kind of
Yes.
adjusts,
Everything has a plus or minus, because we're
yeah.
electrical again. It goes back to electrical, and the first law is self-preservation because we have that,
Mhm.
fight or flight, if something is happening that you feel that your life is being threatened, you're going to fight harder than anybody is going to, can imagine. And that is built in. So,
Yeah.
and then that goes beyond, into self care, self respect, taking care of
Hmm.
yourself because you are giving
Yeah.
this soul and this life and these experiences, and how do you wanna treat that, and I'm no expert. I'm no expert at any of this. I deal with anxiety. I deal with a lot of things that uh, I wish I could just get rid of, and it's not that
Hmm.
easy. But definitely the law of self-preservation, that is our first one, and then the law of balance, like you said, there's a right and a wrong, a left and a right, black and white. It's all balance. Everything's balanced
Hmm.
out. So that's kind of an interesting thing because it seems I study people that have made their dreams come true, and which has given them a lot of great opportunities. But then a lot of these people have also had a lot of tragedy in their life as well, which I
Mm-hmm.
can only equate in my mind to the law of balance. Is that if you know,
Gotcha.
yeah, I mean, not, I don't know. I mean, that's just my belief. Some people might not agree with that, but it just seems like it kind of goes hand in hand when you see like such great opportunities also have had some great pain and heartache that went with it. So,
Yeah, and I mean they always say that it's like the you in order to feel and experience the joy, you have to experience the sorrow
yeah,
and
how
the
would we
pain.
know?
Like
Yeah,
you wouldn't be able to
mhm,
recognize it if you didn't
right.
know how much something can hurt,
Oh,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't
So,
know the difference at all, and we're here to experience all. I believe also that we decide what, not that we can't get out of it, but that we
mhm.
decide what we're going to do when we come here. Like things that we think we need to learn, or that we've had. I believe we have advisors that kind of point out.
I was going to talk to you, spirit
Yeah, yeah,
guides. Tell me, yeah, you tell me
yeah.
about that because I was
Yeah.
going to go there. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a couple of things on our list we'd like to talk to you about.
Yeah.
All that road
Spirit
rage.
guides?
Remember that
Yes.
road rage that you used to
Yes.
do, that you swore at everybody that ever drove by you in your life? That's a thing.
Yes.
That's a thing that we have to work on here about, a little
Yes.
bit of anger management, but
Yes.
I think that you kind of, get an idea of what you came to learn. Not that you can't get out of it, because we have free will. Souls have
Hmm.
been given free will, and nothing actually can cross that. Your spirit guides or your guardian angels, or however you want to refer to them, they can't even help you unless you ask them to. So that's big. That's big.
Mm.
Pray for yourself. Talk to your angels. Talk to your guides. Say, I need help, or I need guidance, or I welcome your influence. So
Yeah.
yeah, you have to ask, because they're not allowed to interfere at all, but they
Mm.
can help. They can
But they can
intervene,
help.
they can do things, but they have to have your permission to do it, even if it's good. So that's what my belief is anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So now let's do a little Akashic record talk because that's so
Oh,
fun. So
yeah.
if that's the case, so by the way, so I mean, do you practice meditation, to kind of,
Mhm,
what are your thoughts on the Akashic records? uh, what I'm seeing is as I do research, reading your book, and then doing research on some of Edgar Casey and all the other,
mhm.
all the other influences, I'm like, there's some timing things here with things were written during a certain period of time that it seems like there was a lot of inspiration,
Oh yeah. Oh
similar
yeah.
inspiration being expressed through different channels.
Well,
So, talk to me about the Akashic record and what you think,
yeah, what
what's
I've
up there.
learned, what I believe the Akashic records are, is kind of like and I'm using God. Not everybody uses God, but I will use that. To me, the Akashic records is
Mhm.
like the brain of God, like the library
Mhm.
of God. It has every soul, every life, every creation is recorded, and again, it goes back to everything is numbered. There, every name, like every
Mhm.
lifetime that you live, you have a different set of numbers. So that's how I feel things are filed.
Mhm.
That's weird to say
Yeah,
that, but
it is. Yeah.
like with people, what I try to do is I do meditate, and a lot of times I do my light. I bring in white light first, and then I do my chakras, and chakras are the
Mhm.
7 spots where this electrical energy attaches to your body and affects your physical body. So you have 7
Mm.
of them. You are actually a rainbow, which is, I think, it's super cool. So the light comes in through the top of your
That would
head,
be cool. Yeah.
and I picture it going out the bottom of your feet and into the earth, and then back up around again. That's one way that you can cleanse yourself, is to take white
Mhm.
light and send that energy down into the earth, which will cleanse it, and then
Mhm.
bring it back up around again, like a big circle. But
Mm-hmm.
chakra is the Sanskrit word for wheel of energy. And
Mm-hmm.
those our soul, our life force is attached to us in 7 places. And the root chakra is red. And then the intestinal area is sacral, I think it's called, is orange. The stomach is
Yeah.
yellow. Your heart is green. Your throat is blue. Your third eye is indigo, and then your crown is lavender. And that
Wow.
we refract into a literal rainbow. And I use those colors to heal myself, to make myself feel better. And I can't always tap in, like, like Edgar Casey, he knew how to lay down and, get into that zone that he
Mm-hmm.
could tap in to the records. That's what he was doing. It was tapping into the Akashic records. That's how he was healing people that he had never seen in person, is he was looking into the files and going, oh,
Yeah.
that's what they have, and this is how to cure it. I get lucky. I tap in here and there, and I have prophetic dreams. Again, like Bon. Bon just showed up about a month ago, again, which is
Mm-hmm.
cool because he hasn't been around for a long time. And so I try to do that. I try to tap into the light, mostly visually. You're
Mm-hmm.
mentally doing this, and when I go places, have make your white light strong around you, around your car, around your body, around everybody around you, because it's a field of protection that you can use. So that's where
Yeah.
chakras come in.
And all of this, you guys, is in her book. I mean, if you and it's a very easy read, and I'm just loving it because it's
Thank you.
introducing me to other. It's kind of taking me down its own rabbit holes. The law of numerology, the law of karma, the law of love. Now, there was one
Mm,
thing. So my husband, we have. It's funny because we used to just kind of hang out, and now it's like in the mornings before like 8 o'clock we'll question the nature of our reality. So sometimes it's like I'll have a talk with him and I'll be like, I feel really fearful, and he's like, think about the opposite of fear is like courage. Now in your book
mm.
you mention fear and you say the polar opposite of fear is love. So
Exactly.
is
There's
that
only
not true?
two
So tell me
things.
about that. Yeah, so it's like
Well, and again, this is what I've learned. This is not, I can't
Mhm,
claim this as an original, but there
mhm.
are only two things: love and fear. And when you love, you attract love. You attract what you, like I said, as us being a signal, the signal you
Mhm.
put out attracts that type of signal back, like a radio signal. You're maybe
Yeah.
150 watts or whatever, and you're going to bring back 150 watts because it matches. And
Mhm.
that's what happens with fear. Also, unfortunately, is that when you fear, then you draw all kinds of things to you that will make you fearful, and it's no fun. And I know a lot of
Yeah.
people deal with that. So
It
you
attracts the worst. It's like the more fearful you're going to be, the more it's like a
mm.
self-fulfilling prophecy. And my
Oh,
husband does
yes.
we call each other out, and he calls me out more because sometimes I'm like, I get so rattled, like just riddled in fear that you
Hmm.
feel paralyzed. Therefore, you're not going to make any progress. You're not really going to solve
Yep.
any problems because
No,
fear
I
is like
know.
the ultimate lock and key. It
Oh,
makes
yeah.
you not, it puts you in the guardrails. It's like you need to live here in
Well,
fear,
you
you
reminded
know?
me of something that the woman that wrote The Secret, the
Hmm.
second book, she wrote something she said about being negative, okay, as far as drawing
Hmm.
things to you, really stuck in my head because she said for every negative thought or negative statement that you make, you build another bar onto your own prison cell. And that just, wow.
That's so fascinating. And that's
Yeah.
something that, I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot because it's like, is the trick to just trip the system by just throwing positivity out there and just making sure
Hmm.
that you try to keep keep an eye out for that negative thought because it creeps into your head and it is
Yeah.
paralyzing.
Oh, tell
Fear
me.
is
Yes.
paralyzing.
Yes.
What if we trip the model by
Hmm.
all just taking a day of put your shit aside and
Oh yeah,
just
just
let's just
think
be
positive.
positive. Think
Just
would it just
yep.
freak it out? It's like if there was enough people, and I know that that's like so it seems like really naive, but I would just think that
Mm.
we got to do something,
Oh
because
yeah, well, and I'm
there's
struggling
power
with that
to this.
myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm struggling with that myself. Is that I have a lot of things to be proud of and happy about, but I worry about like what I haven't done or what I might not do, and that
Hmm.
doesn't bring any new opportunities when I'm doing that. So
Yeah.
I have to get back. I work at getting back into believing in myself again. Belief. Yes, right.
Hmm.
X J. Fear is a control. Um, it keeps your vibration down, so you're not manifesting.
Yeah. That's the
Yes.
other thing I want to talk about vibrations because we were talking frequencies too. You get
Yep.
into everything.
Everything's a
But I'm just
vibration.
like looking, it's vibration. It's like,
I believe that
why do I
we
feel
punish
a certain
ourselves.
way? Yeah.
Yes, I believe
Yeah.
that too.
So,
I don't think that
yeah,
somebody's calling the shots at all. We are. We're
we are.
driving the car. So
Amy's in the
yes,
house,
yes,
alien girls like manifested.
manifested.
We
That's
need to
right.
do this. I think if we consciously start making these steps as
Hmm.
a collective, because that's
Oh
where it
yes.
starts to make a difference. It's like at the collective, can we?
Oh,
I
we
feel
we
like
have
that
to.
everything, everywhere, all at once. Remember the way to
Yep.
trip
Yeah.
it by
Yeah.
doing something so ridiculous.
Hmm.
And the ridiculous thing would be to just love without agenda,
Oh yeah.
regardless of what. Just throw it out there. Just throw it out there
Yep.
without expectation. Kevin from Super Chats in the house.
Yep.
Wouldn't that be a freaking trip, Susan?
Well, and again, going back to anything that I have ever done, and I've had a lot of crazy things happen. I mean, I ended up um, being rejected. Here's another like synchronicity type thing. I couldn't find a publisher for Rock and Roll Fantasy, but I didn't try really hard because I don't like rejection. Just don't.
Yeah. None
And
of us really crave
I
it, but
don't like it. I just don't like it. When I hear
damn
like
it, I love rejection.
no, it's like
Go
Stephen
ahead,
King
just
like
kidding.
got 100 rejection letters.
Yeah.
I would have quit writing at like 30. So the
Mhm.
30th letter, that would have
Yeah.
like I would have gone into nursing or something. I would
Mhm.
have like you've had enough rejection. This is not your path. But
Yeah.
but I mean
I
I I tried to, find a publisher for that, and and
Mhm.
Angus actually he got to read that book, my first book. I let him read Rock and Roll Fantasy because I'd never written a book, and I was writing about them. I didn't know if they were cool with it, and
Yeah.
Angus told me I needed more dirt. That's what
You did my dirt, girl.
he said. You need more dirt, and I went. I'm not going to write dirt about you guys. I would never write about that. But I ended up putting it out as a CD-ROM that you could put in your computer because printing books was very expensive at that time. And my ex-husband did that because he's a great graphic artist and very creative person, and ended up selling that CD-ROM in 14 countries. And
Oh wow.
I sent it
Mhm.
to a local publisher that rejected it, but then sent me a letter back and said, "But you know a lot about the history of Wisconsin music, because I grew up in it,
Uh-huh.
basically. We're
Yeah.
doing a series of famous Wisconsin for Badger Books. It was a local publisher here, and we're looking for somebody to write famous Wisconsin musicians. Would you consider that?" Well, I did it.
Hmm.
I ended up doing it. I ended up having to write 32 mini biographies, like a whole career in four
Wow.
pages. Talk about getting trained to write the ACDC book. I ended up doing 32 mini biographies for this book, and I ended up having Les Paul write the foreword for me and becoming friends with him. So I ended up
Wow.
getting to know Les Paul.
That
Who
is
does who does that?
who
I
does
mean,
that? Who could
who does
you
that?
can just like I know now Les Paul.
I mean, I'm not Steve Miller,
I
you know, I'm not like
yeah.
a big I'm not Paul McCartney, you know, I'm not a
Like,
musician at all. But I
oh
still
my gosh.
ended up being you know, friends with Les Paul. It was
But
amazing.
but it but it must be it's like it's your inner like it's your energy. It's like you brought it and they felt it and it was like it
Yeah.
they welcomed you, even though at a time where it would have been like, oh, what's a girl doing around here? Unless, like
Oh, it
kind of a
was.
groupie. No, you were like part of the group, seeing like behind the kitchen doors, right? And
Oh,
they
yeah,
let
yeah.
you in. And not
Yep.
only them, but Van Halen too. I couldn't
Mhm.
believe some of the stories you were telling about them. It's like they welcomed you. Like,
Oh,
I love that
yeah.
picture. I've got to put that picture back up of the book because it cracks
This
me
is
up.
this is
The
one of my favorite
picture.
picture
Oh, this
or
is not the one. Dang it. There's another
yep,
picture that
there's
has
another one.
you being grabbed by Eddie Van Halen. And it's like these
Yes.
people just kind of gravitated to you and you connected with all of them. And
Well,
you do have a story about Eddie as well, if you want to share it
yeah,
real quick. I know that I'm trying not to keep you too long, but people
no,
are here and it's just
I
so
got
fun. So
nothing to
just a little
do but
longer. Okay.
talk to you as long as you're up
Thank
for it. You
you.
know, I could
Just a
talk
little
about this
longer.
stuff
That'd
all
be
night.
great.
Yeah, I met Van Halen on their first tour, and was part of the mayhem of them trashing the seventh floor of the Sheraton Hotel in Madison, Wisconsin. They even dedicate in their dedications on their second album, the seventh floor of the Sheraton. So they made a huge
Hmm.
impression over 3 nights, and so years later, the hotel took some of their hotel rooms that they stayed in and made it into a conference room called the Roth
Hmm.
Room. They couldn't get rights to the Van Halen room, so it's called the Roth Room. And I
Hmm.
gave them a lot of
Yeah.
memorabilia,
Yeah.
and it's so you can go online. Well, you can go, I think, on Facebook or on my website. I have all the pictures from the Sheraton
Hold on. I actually give me a second. Let me pull that up because I have it.
because yeah, they
Let me
had me
see.
kind of christen
Share
that when they
screen,
opened it.
gallery. Let me share that. Okay, hold on. Let's go to which one? I'm gonna go to the gallery. Which one do you want me to go to?
Oh dear.
Oh, here we
Well,
go. Let's see. I don't know if you can see it.
let's see.
Do, do,
Oh,
do, do,
well,
do,
the
do.
one
Oh, here's hold on. I'm gonna get the famous picture.
oh,
That one's in here for sure. What is it? I thought it was in your
er,
gallery.
oh, the one right there. Oh,
Is this the one with the
where
hand? No, that one.
right the one right here. Oop. Oh, no, what did I just do? Oh my God, I did something weird.
Is it camera one or camera two? I'm just gonna start going through these. So here's the Hank Williams. We didn't even talk about that. So you guys are gonna have to. Oh, she's gone. She will be back. Hold on a second. She's not here. There she is.
I knocked myself.
And she's back.
Oh,
It's okay. I
I
didn't kick you out. I didn't. It wasn't me. I don't kick my guests out.
yeah, though I don't the one with Van Halen's in there somewhere.
Yeah, I know it.
It's
Because I downloaded it for the promo. Look at you and your life. This is
uh,
you and George Noory.
yeah. Oh my, I love George
That's so
Norrie. Such a
cool.
hero of
George
mine.
Noory.
Yeah,
What is going on
Foghat.
here?
That's Foghat.
Foghat.
That's
Oh my God,
Foghat.
you guys, check it
Yep.
out.
Lonesome Dave
Eh,
Peverett and Rod Price. Oh, this is on me
oh
and
my God.
Flavor
Flavor
Flav
Flav.
at the Book Expo.
Flavor Flav. Okay, I saw all the episodes of Flavor of Love.
Did
There,
you?
I
Yeah,
said
yeah,
it.
yep, yep.
Yes. Flavor Flav with his clock, and he still had it there. I
Uh,
love Flavor of Love. Sorry, VH1 was the thing. So what's going on here? So this is at the
that's
Hank.
my publisher of my
Okay.
Hank Williams book, John Cerullo, and he was with Hal Leonard, and that was yeah, he's one of my publishers. He did also the ACDC FAQ book was published with
Oh,
him.
cool.
Yeah,
Very cool. Let me
yeah.
see.
Oh, me and Cliff
So
Williams. Oh, my
Cliff
dear.
Williams. There's some stories there I can tell.
No,
It's
no,
just
no, nope.
oh nope,
I
nope.
behaved. That's
I mean,
cheap. That's
I
cheap
just
trick.
oh my god, Cheap Trick, you guys! I
That's
love
cheap
Cheap
trick. And
Trick.
Rick trying to grab not my purse but
And
something
you and
else.
Giorgio, and this is
Yes,
like it's so
me and
funny. You and Giorgio with the
me and
high hair.
Giorgio. I know. This is me in
Oh my god!
Serbia. I actually got to go to
Oh
Serbia.
wow!
I was invited
Oh
over
my
there by a
goodness!
band and went and signed my own books in Belgrade. That's my book signing I had in Italy that was gifted to me the night before AC/DC played in Italy in 210 on the Black Ice Tour.
Oh,
So
oh
that's
my
me in
goodness!
Italy.
Malcolm,
Malcolm, God bless him. Genius, absolute genius. This
this
is
is
this is
hilarious because
Mike
I thought it
Myers'
was.
brother. Yeah, this is
This
Mike
is
Myers'
your
brother.
Mike Myers twinsies.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
it's
he's a
are they
writer.
twins or brothers? They're
Just
twins, right?
brothers. No, they're
They're
brothers. His
just
name's
brothers. They
Paul.
look exactly the same.
He sounds just like him too. His voice is exactly
That
like
is
him, and he's a
hilarious.
writer. He's written books himself.
That
So,
is too cool. I'm
oh my
just
god,
going
yeah,
through
Phil
Phil
Rudd,
Rudd.
the one and only.
Look at you.
Oh,
Ted Nugent.
Ted, Uncle
Ted
Ted,
Nugent. Uncle Ted. Look at that.
Uncle Ted. That's
And
I
this
was at
is
the
at
book
the book.
expo in yep, in New York City doing I don't
Look
know
at
what station.
that. I love it. I love the
That's
look.
that was my press pass. That's Italy,
Oh my
being
goodness.
in Italy. But let's see.
The
Oh yeah,
life. This is
every day I was there, I was in the
Mhm.
paper with the band, and I
Oh
can
my
imagine
God.
after about the fourth day, the band was like, "Bloody hell!" You know, she just
Like,
wrote a
get
book.
off.
That's all she did is write a book, and then she's in every
We're the
single
ones doing all the work.
yeah, she's in every single thing that comes out on us while we're here, and it's like we're kind of a big deal, you know. I'm sorry,
That's
but
so funny. Look at this.
that was on the Black
Susan,
Ice tour.
Angus,
Angus and
Malcolm.
Malcolm with my sister, and
There's the
there's
picture.
there's the picture.
There's the picture
That is
where Eddie, the nice one, grabs or fake
yeah.
grabs
The
because you didn't even know what was
I
happening. You're
didn't
like,
feel
you
it.
didn't know to that to the picture.
I, I had these wide leg pants, and he knelt down so I could feel that. But I thought he
That's
was
so
just trying to
fun.
fit into the picture, and this
I
is
love it. I love
yeah,
it. And yeah, I love
yeah. There's
the
Alex, and then Michael, and
Alex
then
and David. Yeah.
David. Because I told
Oh,
him I was
okay,
intimidated by
let's go
those
back.
guys because they were so wild, and I told them I didn't want a picture with them. I actually said no. I said no, I'm okay. I'm okay.
That's so funny.
And they started fake crying and going, oh, we're not, no, we get it. We're not good enough for you. Yeah, you're used to bigger rock stars. And so when I walked up
Oh
to
my
them, I
God.
said to them, I said, don't anybody touch me. And I mean it. No grabbing. Okay.
Ooh,
No
they kind of
grabbing.
did.
And when I turned around and
Yep.
went like, okay, go ahead and take the picture. David, he's barely, he's being very, very gingerly holding my elbow. And Michael's behaving himself. Alex, of
Oh.
course, I could feel his hair, on my neck and
Oh my
everything. But Eddie bent down, but I didn't know what was so funny because my photographer started, giggling. He was like actually shaking the camera because he was giggling,
Oh,
and,
funny.
and I had no
That is
idea.
so funny.
So yeah,
Oh my God. Yeah. So you guys, we're gonna put your website on
thank you.
the link because um it's got all the links to your books. It's got I want to make sure before we start closing it up because uh I do have to go take care of my dog. I've been out
Oh,
all day. It's been a crazy day for me as well. So what is going on next? What are you up to right now?
uh,
What else do you want us to know that you want to share?
Well, right now, the new record collector is out. You can order it online, and that is
Oh,
for the 50th anniversary of AC/DC. And I wrote a record review on Fly on the Wall. I have an
mhm.
interview that they did with me, and then they did a nice little book review. So that's out right now. And,
Cool.
just looking forward to the next interview, like the one I'm doing tonight. They seem to come in pretty regularly, and I'm
Oh,
working on my life stories and writing my life story in short story form because I got a million of them. So that's what I
oh,
so
I'm,
any publishers or editors out there that are looking for a great book, hit me up on my
let's
website.
do it. We're gonna put all the information. And does anybody have any questions? I'm gonna say goodnight to
Oh
the
yeah.
chat, but start kind of saying goodnight. But it's been so lovely, and
Oh yeah.
we might have to have you back, me and Lynn. Who knows? So we're,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah,
this just
we
been
didn't even talk
just a
about
lovely.
we didn't get a lot of ghost stories in, you
I
know?
know we didn't even get a
Yeah.
lot of ghost stories. It's like,
We
but
didn't
I do want, I do want a good one. Give me a good. And
okay.
does everybody? Can you guys see? Is she looking okay on the? I think you were
My
breaking up a little bit, and I don't know if it was might have been on my side.
okay.
Tell us a good one. Let's do a
Okay.
good story before
This
wrapping up because I
this
love a good story.
well, this is the best one and it just ties into a lot of things.
Hmm.
My son was obsessed with the boiler room and the men that died in the boiler room on the Titanic. That was something that bothered him a lot. So
Hmm.
fast forward 2 years, we're at the exhibit and we come across a boiler that they brought up from the bottom of the ocean. And he's 6, so he's not very tall, so he's not seeing the same vantage point that I have. But it's a boiler with curtains and a spotlight and then mirrors on both sides. So it looks like a row of boilers, the mirror effect thing. And at first I saw it, I just thought, oh God, I hope this, doesn't like trigger something for him, him seeing it, and it didn't. But I look down the right side, and I see boilers, reflected in the mirrors. I look down
Hmm.
the left side, and I see that, but I also see a life size oil painting of a man shoveling coal into a boiler. He's from the side. He's got a cap on, high collar shirt, woolen pants, the suspenders, that era type clothing, and he's shoving coal into the boiler. And I remember looking up at him and thinking, boy, they went all out for this exhibit. I mean, that's really, that's nice that they remembered the men, like that. That's what I thought. And so as we were in a crowd, as we were slowly moving out of that area, we move over closer to the painting that I thought was painting. And as I was right in front of it, I looked up at him. And as I looked up at him, he turned and looked at me. He moved his head. He turned and
Hmm.
looked at me, and he looked at me like I scared him. Well,
Oh my God, that's
he
right.
scared the light, the daylights out of me because he moved. Paintings don't move. And when
Yeah.
he looked right at me with this terrified look on his face, like, who are you? Like what, and I looked at him like I shut my eyes. I was like, no, 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 no.
Mhm.
And I opened my eyes and there was me looking at myself in the mirror. There's no man, there's no painting, nothing. And my daughter saw it. She saw him too.
And your daughter was, I mean, she was a little bit more of a, not skeptic, but I mean, she did
Yeah,
look at things a
skeptical.
little bit more. She
Yes.
was skeptical, right? Yeah. So,
Yes.
so she saw it too.
She
And
saw him,
she,
but
yeah.
I saw him as a painting and she
Hmm.
saw him as a man standing where there were nowhere to stand. There was no room to stand. So that puzzled her. Like, how is he over
That's
there?
true.
So that's how she saw him. So we saw him a little bit differently, but we both saw him and we both saw him look at us. So we
And it was
described
a
what he looked
mirror.
like. And it was, I'm looking at myself in the mirror and there's no
And she, when
painting.
she, and for her, it also kind of switched where
It's
she's
gone.
like, she
Well,
just
yeah.
saw it for a minute.
And I leaned over and I said, "Did you just see?" And she said, "A man." And I said, "Shoveling coal." And she goes, "With a hat on." And I'm like, "Yeah." It's like I'm trying to not freak out in front of my kid in the middle of this exhibit, but it was something I've always wanted to see was a full body apparition. I wanted to see
Wow.
that
And
my
that you
whole life.
saw it there,
Yeah.
that's the trip because that's all tied to, all the other
Well,
stuff
and
about
maybe
Jamie.
my
Was like,
son was, not the designer. Maybe he worked in the boiler room. Maybe that was my son.
And honestly, when I first,
Yeah,
because as I was reading your book and I remember the story, it's like, what if it wasn't Thomas Andrews? But it seemed like it
somebody
was somebody that knew that they shouldn't have been in the position that they were.
exactly. Yeah.
And those people in the boiler rooms did have to understand, managers could have had to understand the entire setup. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it was still a story that struck me the first time I saw it, and that now I'm talking to you about it is just another
Well,
proof that things bring us together somehow.
and another part of this that wasn't in I think I wrote about it, but it wasn't in the TV show, is that the
Hmm.
people that were filming Ghosts Inside My Child toward the end of the show, they got blueprints of the Titanic off the internet. They brought it to the
Hmm.
house, and we filmed it as something that I was giving my son as a gift. So we're in the
Hmm.
kitchen, and they filmed us, and we took it out of the tube. I had not looked at it. My son didn't know what it was. We rolled it out. Now he's 19 years old when we shot the TV show. They rolled it
Hmm.
out onto the table, and before they started to shoot, they said to me, "Ask him where the dummy stack is." And I said, "Oh, okay." So camera starts
Hmm.
rolling, and I present this to him, and we roll it out. And I said, "Can you show me on this blueprint here? Where's the dummy stack? Where would that be?" It didn't take him 2 seconds to point out where the dummy stack was. And he said, "See, here's the four
And how
smokestacks."
old was he then? How old
19.
was he? Yeah,
He was
okay. But
19.
he
And
just
he went right to it, and then showed how there were no intake valves underneath to let the steam in and out. So he showed me the difference. And the cameraman and the lighting guy looked at each other and went, they just
oh
it
my
just
God.
stopped us all. We just took a breath of like, whoa, wait a minute. Because I looked at it, I couldn't make heads or tails of anything on that paper. And he went right to the dummy stack and told me, "See, there's no intake valves underneath here where the steam would go out." And that was when he was 19. So still crazy. Just
Yeah, it's like
fascinating
how
and
do
crazy.
seeing your kid go through that, seeing them have the night terrors and then finding out even more details. I mean, it's gotta be such a trip for you, but at the
Yeah.
same time you're very open to all these concepts, so if anybody can handle it, you can. You
I,
know.
I believed in
Yeah.
reincarnation as a kid. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was called, but I knew I had
Mhm.
been here before because I wasn't happy coming back as a kid.
Yeah,
I
you
actually
didn't yeah,
I
you're like
wasn't
you didn't
happy.
want to be
No, I was like, "No,
well,
no, you you dropped me on the wrong planet." So
you're
I
like,
always
I
did
am
that.
not coming back here.
I know, I know. I did. I don't know what I was angry about, but I went in my room one day and I shook my fist at the ceiling and I yelled, "I said I wasn't coming back here again."
Oh,
I was
wow.
so angry. I was like, you know, and the universe is laughing.
Hey,
It's like, "Ha ha, have a good life."
I yeah, we can't. We just can't. The universe is. The mysteries are so big. We just can't put them in a box, and definitely not a box that it's meant to make us comfortable.
Oh, no.
We gotta
No.
keep an eye out. We gotta keep our minds open because it's just too mind blowing either way. So
It's fascinating all the way around. So
I love
we'll
it.
have to talk again. We'll talk more ghosts and
Oh my God, yes. We have to
some of
have a follow-up. Maybe I'll have
yeah,
Lynn. We can do it
yeah,
together.
yeah.
Bring it. We have part one, part two. Now bring
Gotta
it
have a
all
third
together for a grand finale and
or
have like
three.
all ghost story nights where we
Yes,
like have a panel. This would be so fun. I'm going to talk to
yeah,
Lynn about that. So
great.
it has been such a pleasure. So
Oh,
I'm going
thank
to
you.
play us off. I'm sorry at the beginning. I sort of got, I went live. It said I went live. Stuart was here. I noticed I was asking if there was any
I saw
because
it
it
though.
said zero watching. And I'm like,
Well,
but it
yeah.
started late. But it started
Mhm.
zero watching, and I'm like, I haven't hit anything. It still says live, and then we went live.
Yeah, well,
So,
like, you have a strong aura, and
I
so
know,
do I. So
I know it's
we
like we paused the live stream. It just took a
oh yeah.
while because there was so much energy coming through the channels. So,
Exactly, and lots of love.
uh,
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for
thank
listening,
you.
and for all
Oh
the
my
people that
gosh.
wrote in and everything. And it's always an honor and a privilege for me
Everybody's
to
so
talk
happy.
about so many great people that I've known in my life too. It's been a real honor. So thank you for having me.
Oh, we would love to have you back. I'm going to talk to Lynn and we're going to have a story night and it's going to be a
Oh,
awesome show. And it has been a
we
pleasure with you here today.
we didn't get to
I
the Eddie Van Halen thing at the Sheridan, but I don't know if we have
squeeze
time.
that in. Dude, we have time. Do it.
Should I?
Do
Oh my
do
God!
the Sheridan.
See,
Does everybody want to hear about Eddie Van Halen at the Sheridan? I think the answer is going to be yes. So
it
go
just
for
hit
it,
me that I was
Susan. You
supposed
can't
to
leave
answer
us
that
out
for
there.
you.
If I shut that down without that answer, they'd kill me. Go for
Uh,
it,
well,
please.
okay,
I do
so
it. Mhm.
fast forward to when they open the Roth Room, and I'm there for a book signing in 2020, and to celebrate my birthday. So I was
Mhm.
there with three friends in two rooms on the same floor, with the Roth Room, and they unveiled the Roth Room, and we have a lot of people come and see it. And it was a great party. Had a birthday cake, and it's just so much fun. But I was in one room, and with my one friend, and then my two girlfriends were in the room across the hall. Well, our room, there was obviously somebody in there with us, because there was all this noise, constant
Wow.
noise, these like little things, like somebody's in the bathroom, and so I started calling this whoever. I started calling him Eddie because I was thinking of Eddie Money, because Eddie Money had already passed
Oh
away, and I
yeah.
had partied with Eddie and his band at the Sheridan in the past. So he was
Wow.
somebody else I
Mhm.
got to hang out with. Amazing voice.
Wow.
But I was
I
calling him
love
Eddie.
Eddie Money.
I
I
love
love Eddie
Eddie
Money.
Money. Isn't he amazing?
Love
I
Eddie Money.
just
I
love
saw
his
Eddie
voice.
Money in concert
So
once. Love Eddie Money.
yes,
Go
yeah. So
keep
I
going.
I was calling this person Eddie Money to me, right?
Hmm.
So this happens the first night where we're all four in the bedroom part, and all four of us are saying, "Who's in the bathroom?" And I said, "Eddie's in the bathroom. He's obviously having fun. So go whatever." I just was like blowing it off. And so
Hmm.
the first night we went to sleep, I couldn't sleep because I had the book signing, and there was the pandemic going on and everybody wore masks, but I was like freaking out thinking, "Oh my God, if somebody gets sick, I'll never forgive myself." I could not go to sleep. So I'm laying there, and all of a sudden somebody came up to my side of my face and breathed into my ear, into my left ear, to where I could feel it on my skin. And I thought it
Wow.
was Eddie. So so I was so exhausted.
Oh my
I
God.
said, real funny. I said, either leave or climb in and help me go to sleep. And I passed out.
Wow.
So that was the first night. The second night,
Wow.
we partied till all kinds of hours for my birthday, but somebody's in the bathroom, and people keep, you know, one of the girls, mention, "Oh, did you hear that? Yeah, that's Eddie. Eddie's in the bathroom."
Wow.
So we go to bed that night, and again I said, I think I told him to stop it. I said that, enough. We know you're here. Like
That's not.
whatever. And so my girlfriend falls asleep. I'm laying there again awake, of course, because my mind is always flying. And she
Uh-huh.
lets out in the dark a blood curdling scream, like she's going to be murdered scream. And
Mm-hmm.
for one full second, of course, you freeze. You absolutely freeze because you think there's somebody in the room, and this is not
Mm-hmm.
going to go well. And then she bursts out laughing and sits up in bed. And I said, "What is going on with you?" I said, "What was that all about?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, this guy, the guy that's in here, he came up, he shoved his face into my face and scared the hell out of me and woke her up." And that's when I
But then
said to
she laughed about it.
Oh
Like,
yeah, because she woke up screaming. She woke herself up screaming, and and
oh
and,
my
and then
God,
she
but
just
she,
then she just burst out laughing, and I said, What are you doing?" And she said, "That the guy, he
the
stuck his face
guy.
into my face." And I said, "Eddie," I said, "that now that's it." I said, "We're going to sleep. You're not going to bother us anymore. Well, I had no idea that Eddie Van Halen was passing away over these days. This was
Oh,
over
that's
the
right. This is over
yeah,
the time.
this was over the
Oh
time that
my
he was
God.
close to dying, and I didn't know about it. But when I left the Sheridan that day, I think on the 4th, this was Sunday the 4th of October, Jump came on the radio, of course.
Oh yeah.
And 2 days later, they announced that Eddie Van Halen had passed away, and was,
Oh.
horribly sad to hear that. But I think that because of the Roth Room, because when they took me into the Roth Room and I saw that it was called the Roth Room, I looked around and
Mhm.
I said, "Oh yeah, Eddie and Alex is gonna hate this." So so I
And
wouldn't put
that,
it
so that
past.
would be the ultimate place for him to play a
Yeah,
trick because he's
just
like,
yeah, he's gonna show up like the Roth Room?
what
Really?
the hell?
I
How about
think
the
that was
Eddie
my
room?
man.
Yes, like Van Halen,
I
not
know,
Roth
not
Halen.
the Roth Room. So I think
Yeah.
he was messing with us, and it just, it's possible. I mean, it could have been Eddie Money, but I really don't think so, because the Roth Room, yeah. I
It would be even funnier, like a trickster type to play it in that room to make a
oh
point. And
oh God, yeah.
obviously Eddie was a trickster. He's kind of fun,
Yep.
but it's like sweet, but
Yep.
probably would like I mean he had a good sense of humor, so
Well, and
I want to
he
play a
has
joke
his
on you, make you laugh.
he has in the
Yeah.
picture his hands around my left leg, and he breathed into my left ear. And that was,
Oh,
yeah, it was pretty cool.
make
Now
it
that, when I realized it was him, I really thought Eddie Money.
be
And then
different.
when I didn't
Yeah.
know that Eddie was transitioning over those days.
My
And
goodness. I
I believe
remember
that
when
you
that
can
happened.
travel and check things out, while you're doing that. So I think he might have shown up just to, it's the Van Halen room.
I loved Van Halen. I loved, it's like my years in Puerto Rico. I remember just driving around playing Jump.
Yep,
Like Rock was talking about the song, and it was like that was like one of our favorites. But Eddie
absolutely.
was always
Oh,
my favorite. I have to agree.
yeah.
I think you said it in Lynn's show, and I totally agree. Eddie was my favorite of those four.
He
It's
was
like, I'm sorry.
so
He was
gorgeous.
adorable.
He was
Adorbs. Yeah,
oh,
sorry, Stuart. Adorbs. Yes.
no.
No,
He was show stopping all the way around.
yeah.
The way he played,
And the
everything.
grin and his
That
music,
little
his
yeah,
talent, and that little grin, the
that
little
little
eyes, the
smile.
hair.
Yeah, he had it
Yeah.
all. He had it
He
all.
had it
So,
going on.
yeah.
So we love you, Eddie.
Love you,
So
Eddie. Yep.
we love that you played. If you played a joke on Susan,
It was a good one.
well done.
It was,
Well
yes.
done, buddy.
Always well done.
Well
Yep.
done. Well, thank you so
All right.
much, Susan. And before I let you go, I am going to announce. So next week, Mindforked is back, and I think it'll be a nice journey because we're going to be talking about vortexes. I
Ooh,
have Dan Shaw, who's a vortex investigator, and we're going to be talking portals, vortexes, ley lines, just in general, the triangles. I want to talk to him about vernal. I want to talk to him about, the different areas where you've seen a lot of, paranormal
mhm,
activity. So we're going to be talking about that stuff. So if
right.
you guys want to come back, please leave a comment if you liked it, like it, and hit the like. And thank you, Susan.
Thank you so
Thank
much. I had a
I
great
just
time.
wait. I'm gonna take you off stage. I'm gonna play a little outro, which is the promo to next week's show, and I'll
Okay.
talk to you in just a second. Okay, so I'm gonna
Uh,
take you back. You guys, wasn't that fun, chat fam? Thank you for hanging out on a Wednesday night. And so next Wednesday we have Dan, and then after that on Friday we're gonna have Chris Bartell. So I'm gonna play off. Hopefully this will play this time. I'm gonna play us off with the promo for next week. And peace. Thank you, and thank you for hanging out. Bless you. Talk to you later. Here we go. Follow the tunnel into the void.
watch as you were put to the test.